The Independent Electoral Commission says electronic voting won't be used in next year's local government elections. This is despite a conference taking place looking into its feasibility. IEC Deputy CEO Mawethu Mosery joins us now for more. A very good evening to you, Mr. Mosery. Thanks very much for your time. Is it because you are not as yet confident that it will deliver the goods, the electronic voting system, that is?
Not really, Vuyo. Good evening to you. It is more about initiating a conversation with South Africans, for South Africans to understand what electronic voting is all about. We did present that there are 3 types of electronic voting. Secondly, South Africa must choose which one suits the political environment, the political interest, the citizens' access to voting process. Which of these types of technologies is more suitable and more comfortable for South Africans? The third consideration would obviously be matters of budget, financing, and the fourth matter would be their ability to have connectivity throughout the country, and that all of us as South Africans, wherever we find ourselves, we will experience this technology on equal basis, similar basis, and similar access for all of us. So it's all of those 4 issues in the basket of matters for the conversation that we initiated in March, and we envisage the conversation continuing for a short while.
What about the attitudes or suspicions even by some sectors of our population about electronic voting?
We started by doing desktop research on this aspect, and secondly, we did field research where we seek views of South Africans that we could reach. We obviously had focus group discussions, we had stakeholder engagement research to just source the views. And whilst there's over 60% support for convenience, for how quickly it will give us results, there were also equal over 60% reservations on the trust elements, which probably is the running theme with the political space and the political role players as we have them currently in the country. And that would weigh heavily on how soon South Africans would arrive at a decision around what type of technology they would be comfortable with. Of the 3 key types of technologies, they provide different risks, different advantages, and therefore, as South Africans, we must debate all 3 of them.
It be, or at least that the reason many people remain suspicious even of electronic voting is because perhaps they don't have a sense of appreciation of the actual benefits of electronic voting?
Well, there are those who indicated, over 30% indicated no knowledge, no understanding of what electronic voting is all about, whilst there was a neutral group of about 10 to 20%, and the rest were people who were saying there are indeed possible benefits on electronic voting, but we're unsure whether the country was ready for that. Now, for a sizable number of South Africans who did not know what it was, we need, as an electoral commission and as well as the state, talk more about the advancement of technology and how it benefits in a broad sense, because you would not, at the end of the day, look at e-voting as a standalone. You would look at e-voting as part of the developmental trajectory of the country going towards e-governance and e-ID that Department of Home Affairs has been talking about. So in that holistic development of the country, we are putting e-voting as one of the key areas that we need to look at. So as a country, we're not yet at a stage where we are together in our understanding, in our knowledge of how it works, before we can demystify issues of mistrust of technologies in elections.
Let's talk about active versus inactive parties, which was an issue over the past few months, where some political parties felt hard done by the whole process. Where are things now following consultations, but also representations that many parties made?
As a country, we are a multi-party democracy. Therefore, we encourage the existence of political parties. Yes, the number may be enormous for some, but that's the nature of the democracy that we have. Currently, our register has over 609 registered political parties, of which about 196 had not contested elections recently and have no seat, whether in municipalities or provincial or national legislatures. And therefore, we had to ask them whether, as a party, do you still exist? Do you want to be kept on the register? Because it is the function of the Electoral Commission to maintain the register of political parties pure and up to date. And that is the process we undertook. From that 190 odd parties, we received submissions from 3 who confirmed that we should cancel their registration. 53 did not respond at all, and about 136 made representation that they want to remain as registered political parties, and the Commission is considering all of these submissions to make a determination fairly soon on these parties.
Perhaps, lastly, I mean, the issue of political party funding is very much with us, with some people saying the current system, which is under the Political Funding Act, is woefully inadequate to take care of the concerns that set in motion the conversations and the subsequent legislation that led to its enactment. Where is that process now, would you say, Mr. Mosery?
Vuyo, we've implemented the Act as passed by Parliament. We are on our 4th year, and we've covered very good ground, and we have a good experience on the implementation of this law. However, we feel that it is time to do some review and take care of some of the concerns you've mentioned. Hence, the seminar that we also announced today that it will take place mid-June this year, to basically look at the scheme itself. Does it cover all what we desire as South Africans? And how are political parties responding to the disclosures as well as the distribution of funds in terms of this act? And then we would look at what other gaps exist and the possibilities going forward. Obviously, some of the matters you raise relate to campaign financing, which is more a political funding discussion that focuses on the expenditure of parties, whereas our system is not focusing on the expenditure of parties. It is focusing on what was the income, where was it from, and from the fiscus, how much is made available and how are we distributing it, and whether political parties account for what we allocate to them on a quarterly basis. So that's our current framework, and obviously the seminar will help in the discussion on whether this regime must go further to look at the expenditure side of what political parties are doing.
And the next local government elections could come as early as November 2027.
Certainly, in terms of the constitutional framework, it's a 5-year term, and that 5-year term ends on the 1st of November, which is the day we held the elections in 2021 during COVID. So when the term ends, we have 90 days to hold a general election as a country. That 90 days ends somewhere at the end of January 2027. So within that 90 days, we would then expect, in consultation with ourselves by the Minister of Culture, to proclaim an election date in that period. Therefore, in terms of preparation, planning, we should all as a country, as media houses, as political parties, be preparing for as early as possible an election, subject to what the minister finally proclaims.
Mr. Mawethu Mosery, thank you very much for your time as the Deputy CEO of the Independent Electoral Commission, following a briefing the Commission had earlier today, taking the media through a whole range of issues that have to do with elections.